Hi there guys, and welcome to another edition of the Cover Zero show with me, your host Simon Conboy. Draft wrapped up over the weekend. I thought it was a thoroughly entertaining one, particularly the first and second rounds. A lot more trades and some moves I don't think anyone really saw coming. So this episode we'll be reviewing how the NFC North teams fared over the weekend. So I'm just going to hop straight into it and get to the Chicago Bears, who were the first team to make real big news on the night by trading up to get Mitchell Trubisky, the quarterback from North Carolina, with the second pick, giving up a third rounder next year, and a fourth rounder in order to move up the one spot to get him from San Fran at number 2. So first thing to say about this trade is, wow, great job John Lynch. Clearly sold the Bears that either they were going to take Trubisky themselves or that there was someone else looking to make that jump also. This is an atrocious move in my opinion. I don't think there was much between the quarterbacks in this class. I think even if Trubisky was going to go number 2 and the Bears really felt they had to get a quarterback, they could have just waited and got someone with higher upside like Patrick Mahomes or even Deshaun Watson if they were interested in having that style of dual threat type quarterback. But instead they've gone for a quarterback with 13 starts, and they showed, I think, on an infographic on the show, I was watching the NFL Network's draft coverage, where they showed the quarterbacks that have had such a small amount of college starts, and his was the smallest amount, drafted like real high. And Cam Newton was the one that stood out as a success, but he's got all the physical tools. Trubisky doesn't. He's got an okay arm. He looks like an okay athlete, but compared to Cam Newton. And the rest of the list was not particularly positive. I didn't have Trubisky as a particularly highly rated prospect myself. I just feel this is a disastrous move for this team. They've got Glennon. I think they could have waited till next year. Does this make them better this year? I doubt it. I don't think Trubisky's a better option for the 2017 season. It's a bad team around him. I think this has all the makings. It just reminds me so much of like Jared Goff last year. That I think this could be a real disaster for the Bears. And I don't think it got too much better after that. Second round, getting Adam Shaheen, the tight end from Ashland. High upside, no doubt there. Clearly very good athlete, but again, I don't think this is a player that helps them in year one. I think there were better options on the board. There were certainly some receivers there that could have definitely contributed. A guy like Juju Smith-Schuster would have made far more sense at this juncture, even though I'm not a big fan of his tape. Again, this is a real head-scratcher type of move. Get tight ends a need, but this is a team that I think is a bit of a distance away. I think this definitely was a strange move. And they finally end up making a move I like with Eddie Jackson, the safety from Bama. Safety's been a huge need in Chicago for a while. There's a lot of depth this year. I think this is a perfectly reasonable player. Whether he can stay healthy, we'll find out. But it was a need, and this is a perfectly reasonable range for him. So this is a good selection. Tariq Cohen, who I hadn't even checked anything out on, a running back from North Carolina, 7 picks later. I looked at him, I was thinking, well, they got Jordan Howard, so this guy, they're looking at him as maybe a scat back. Again, doesn't seem like a particularly big need. Could have got any type of receiving option, a defensive back here, even a project to offensive tackle, something that will help them in the long run. I'm not sure this does. And then at pick 147, they went with Jordan Morgan, a guard from Kurtztown. I expect he'll be a developmental prospect. That's fine. They're solid on the interior in Chicago, so he can sit and develop. Again, I just feel there were bigger needs. So for me personally, this is probably the worst draft of the weekend. I mean, really, this is all going to come down to how you feel about the Trubisky pick. But even removing that, I don't like what they did. This is a team with a lot of needs. They gave up more picks. I mean, they only ended up making the 5 selections. A team without much talent and with very little depth to speak of. I think this is real poor. I think this is going to cost John Fox his job. Just I'm really not sure what the Bears were doing this year. So, yeah, really poor stuff, in my opinion. Reeks of desperation. And is this team better than it was heading into the draft? I don't believe it is. So, moving on to something a bit more positive. Let's go with the Detroit Lions. So, this was where I thought the fall was going to end for Reuben Foster. But instead, had the right position in mind. They've ended up going with Jared Davis, the linebacker from Florida. This is a solid pick. Linebacker was, of course, a huge need. I think defensive tackle and linebacker were the two biggest needs looking at this franchise. Definitely wasn't a DT worth taking, I think, at this juncture. I think going with Foster, I still think would have been a better pick. Again, I don't have the information on his shoulder, and even if I did, I'm not a medical expert, so I probably wouldn't know what to do with it. But I like Davis. I think he's a decent player. Apparently interviewed really well. Seems like a great kid and all that good stuff for them. So that's positive. So this is just a perfectly fine pick. I quite like Davis, as I say. I think there were some better prospects available. If it was Reuben Foster, I'd be all over. This is one of the best picks of the round. So I think it's perfectly fine. And the second, Jalen Tabor, or Tease Tabor, the corner from Florida, didn't test well, has some real spotty tape, sort of looks like stuff gets lost behind him sometimes. When the tape's good, it's good. I think he'd be a really good slot corner. I wouldn't want him outside just from some of the play I saw from him. He's not got the best long speed in the world. It's an okay pick. They needed a corner. I just feel, again, when you look at some of the tape, that maybe were better options available. Went with Kenny Golladay, the wide receiver, in the third. I had no idea who this guy was, so I was having a look. He can catch, I could see that. Not sure too much else about him. This is one I would have to say it was a reach. I wasn't aware of him being, in this kind of a range at all. They did need a receiver. Maybe he'll step in and contribute. It's definitely a need pick, but I'm not crazy about this at all. And then they selected Jalen Reeves-Maybin, another linebacker. Had some injuries. We'll see if he can contribute. I always worry guys who've had the injuries, but hopefully he could be a good one. Did need multiple backers, so again this one made a degree of sense. Michael Roberts, a tight end from Toledo. Makes sense. I think they could do with another tight end. Eric Ebron's not really quite ever worked out. Having more options at the spot is perfectly reasonable. I'm not too familiar with him. Reasonable pick, I think. Jamal Agnew, corner. Again, this is another one of those players I was not aware of. I saw he's 5'9", which worries me. Can maybe play in the slot. You wouldn't want to line him up outside. That I do know. This is a bit of a... Maybe his tape's really good. Then defensive end, Jeremiah Ledbetter from Arkansas. High upside, looks the part. Production maybe doesn't quite match. Brad Kaya, I thought that was a solid pick at that point. Raw, incredibly raw, but the talent, he's certainly got decent talent. So I think this is a decent selection, a potential high-end backup if he can grasp the NFL game and improve his, almost all of his mechanics as a quarterback. And Pat O'Connor, defensive end from Eastern Michigan. Again, this is another player I'm not particularly familiar with. We'll see what happens there. This draft, there's a few picks I'm very questionable about. Jared Davis was perfectly fine. I think I wasn't a big fan of the Tabor or Golladay picks. So really not enamoured with this draft. Done it. I think the team understood its needs. I would have loved to have seen a running back taken. I've been very critical of the running into another season with Amir Abdullah, relying on him staying healthy. I like Abdullah, by the way. I think he is a good player, but relying on him to stay healthy for a whole season is not a reliable, not reliable prospect at all. Again, this is one of those teams. Have they got much better this weekend? I'm really not sure. Not a huge fan of this draft. I will look into these players a bit more, but late round picks, I don't expect a huge amount from. If you don't believe me, check out my franchise and draft review series. I think that did a really good job of surmising 4th through 7th round. The odds of a player contributing are slim to none. So I really, even if I was to look those players up, unless I feel real good about them, it's not really going to alter my opinion in all likelihood. So I think this is a sketchy draft for me personally. So moving on to the Packers. Now, this is much like the Steelers, who I reviewed earlier. This was one of the teams when I did my draft and franchise review for the last decade. As many would have expected, this was one of the most successful teams in the draft. They've always done a good job in this regard, and to be honest, I don't think this year, shock horror, was too much different. So, traded out of the first round to go get Kevin King with the first pick of round 2. I thought King was going to go in the sort of end of round 1, so I think this was a great pick. Fills a need, definitely need a corner. Was one of the highest rated prospects on the board at the time, I think, for a lot of people. Good size. I don't know if you can necessarily run with guys, but if they're going to be playing press, I think this is the kind of guy that you want. Real solid pick. Great job there. One of the, this is why the Packers always do well. And then with their second pick, Josh Jones, the safety from NC State. This is the kind of range I had him in. I'm a fan of his as a prospect. High upside. He could be a real nice complement to Clinton Dix. Again, great job. They know what they're doing in Green Bay. Montavious Adams, again, this is a player I had in that kind of range. I'm not sure he necessarily fits this, the defense particularly well. Doesn't quite have the size that you normally see in Green Bay linemen, but he's a solid player, and I think the value is okay. So, not a huge fan of the pick, but it is perfectly reasonable. Vince Beagle from Wisconsin seems a solid pick. They needed a backer. Certainly going to have the opportunity to start. You'd think the tape is okay. I'm not sure it's a big upgrade, but they needed more bodies, so we'll see what happens there. Jamal Williams, the running back from BYU. Not a huge fan of this pick. I understand they went running back. Definitely agree with that. I just think Marlon Mack was someone I thought a lot higher of, so I thought they could have went with him. I think Williams is a lot more limited as a player, but feels a need. D'Angelo Yancey, wide receiver from Purdue, is a player I'm not particularly familiar with. I'll be interested to see. This team does a really good job developing its wideouts, so we'll see what they manage to get out of him. Aaron Jones, running back from UTEP, not particularly familiar with him again. Certainly going to look into his tape, because let's face it, any of these running backs in Green Bay will have a chance to potentially be a starter next year, so definitely a good spot for him to get drafted. Kofi Amichia, guard, offensive tackle from South Florida. Again, I thought this was a reach. That we'll wait and see what happens. Late pick might provide quality depth in future. Another running back, Devontae Mays, running back from Utah State. Not too much to say on this one. At that pick, I'd be surprised if he makes it. And then pick 247, this was a shocker, because I, like a lot of people, had him in sort of 3rd, 4th round kind of range. Malachi Duper. 6'3" receiver, decent hands. I think this is a really, really great pick. There's certainly a chance that he'll be able to contribute in the grand scheme of things. Not the sort of receiver they've got in Green Bay, to be honest, the red zone threat outside of maybe Jordan Nelson. So, yeah, this is a good pick. So to surmise, yeah, the Packers, once again, really, really like this draft. A bit questionable on some of the late round picks, but they've got a good track record there, so I'm willing to give them a bit of a benefit of the doubt. But massive fan of the first 2 picks. Montavious Adams is fine. So all in all, I think this is a pretty successful draft. I think they've got 2 instant stars. I think Adams will certainly contribute as part of a rotation. One of the running backs will certainly be a contributor. You'd have to think, and you draft 3 and you've got that kind of need at the spot. Someone's going to be playing, and Malachi Duper, good upside. Incredible upside considering the point at which he was drafted. Again, when you look at this compared to the 2 teams I just spoke about, I think you can see far more of a coherent plan as to how the draft has been attacked. Good job, Packers. I think this team is one that I think has definitely got better attacking positions of weakness quite aggressively this year. And as always, I will give the Packers the benefit of the doubt. They do a good job most years. So move on to the final team in the NFC North, the Minnesota Vikings. They had no first round selection as a result of the trade for Sam Bradford last off season, which they didn't make the playoffs, so in a way that does look bad, but who knows how bad they would have been otherwise. So first pick they made was for Dalvin Cook, the running back from Florida State. This is incredible value at 41. So Cook fell by all accounts because of off-field issues. It mainly seems to be concerns with the sort of company that he keeps. Didn't necessarily have as great a combine as people expected, but when you see the tape, this kid can clearly play. He's a very, very dynamic runner, good in the passing game, very much looks like what a lot of teams want from their modern running back, in the Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson all-rounder type of mould. I think this is a fantastic selection for them. Definitely a better option than Latavius Murray. I think this gives them the potential to be a very, very good run team once again. Yeah, great job there, Vikings. That's a fantastic pick. I did not think Cook was going to fall that far. I don't think too many people would have. Was one of the top prospects in the draft, in my opinion. So, yeah, real value. It was a position in need. This is a home run pick for me. Pat Elflein with pick number 70. I like the pick in that this team is bad on the offensive line. So this is someone who I think will step in right away. I don't think he'll be a high-end starter. I like his versatility. I thought Pocic was a better prospect personally. Had Elflein graded slightly below him myself. It was a need. I think there were better options, particularly at the guard spot that the team could have gone for. So I understand the pick, not a huge fan of it. Pick 109, Jaleel Johnson, the nose tackle from Iowa. I think this is a really good pick. Sharif Floyd, not sure what's going to be going on there. So there was a need at this position. I think this was one of the better players on the board at this point. He'll provide good run play for them. Which is fine. They've got some good pass rushers there in Minnesota. They do a great job, Zimmer and crew, of developing defensive linemen. So I think this is a real solid pick. Ben Gideon, the linebacker from Michigan. I don't think his tape's great, but again, they know what they're looking for. He's replacing Chad Greenway. He won't see the field every down, you wouldn't think, which I don't think you'd want him to. Doesn't seem to be the most athletic from tape. Reasonable pick. Rodney Adams, wide receiver from South Florida. I thought this was a reach. I wasn't familiar with him. Now look, tape. There's a lot of dropping the ball, so I'm always concerned about. Danny Isadora, the guard from Miami. I think this is an okay pick. Mixed reviews from what I've heard from his tape. Apparently was very poor at the combine, so we'll see there. Bucky Hodges, the Titan from Virginia Tech. I think this was a great pick. I thought he was going to go much earlier than this because of his general athletic traits. I mean, if you're seeing guys like what's it? I forgot the guy's name. The guy from Ashland. I was talking about him earlier for the Bears. If you see him going that early, Bucky Hodges is someone I would have expected to go in a similar kind of range. So I think he's really good value at this point. Be able to learn behind Kyle Rudolph, possibly contribute in a season or two. So that's a real good pick at 201. Big fan of that one. Stacey Coley, wide receiver from Miami. Again, not particularly familiar with this kid. Players at this point, if they make any contribution, are good picks. So I'll check him out. Ifeadi Odenigbo, defensive end from Northwestern. Not a bad pick at this point. More depth at defensive end. Got some upside to him, so we'll see what happens there. Elijah Lee, linebacker from Kansas State. Not particularly familiar with him myself, so I don't know, we'll see what happens there. And Jack Tosho, cornerback from NC State. Definitely think you can always do with more corners, so we'll see what happens there as well. Bit of a mixed bag this draft. Edging to, I like it from the perspective Dalvin Cook, Jaleel Johnson are picks, and Bucky Hodges are three really, really good picks. So for that, makes it a solid draft to me. You've got potential Pro Bowler in there. You've got, I think, two guys that will probably be starting next season in Elflein and Johnson, as well as Cook. So 3 starters from this draft. One of those backers will likely get Chad Greenway's spot, and Bucky Hodges is a high upside late round pick. So I think this is a real solid draft all round. A lot of numbers to it. Some questionable picks in there, but I think edge towards this being a positive draft. They've done a good job since Zimmer got there. So yeah, I think this is a team again attacked some of their needs quite well. Not sure about the receiver selections. If one of them works out, then I think this is a real good draft. But the Dalvin Cook pick alone almost makes this draft for them. So much like I did with the NFC North video, I'd say favourite draft in this division probably goes with the Packers, then the Vikings, then the Lions, and then the Bears right at the bottom, who I think had possibly the worst weekend of anyone in the NFL. So let me know, what do you guys think? Do you agree, disagree with any of my assessments? I apologise for my lack of knowledge on some of the late round guys. Fortunately, don't have that much time to do research. But I'm pretty confident in my assessment of the guys in the first 3 or 4 rounds generally. Yeah, let me know what you think. Where it's comments below. Find us Cover Zero on Facebook. Find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. I'll be more than happy to discuss this with people. As always, if you enjoyed this, I recommend checking out some more of the videos. Going to be doing my top 100 players in each week along with the show. So hopefully that'll be up before the show airs tonight. I'll be doing a reaction to that tomorrow. So I recommend checking that out because I always have issues with that list. I think my list will... of course, I'm going to think my list is better, but hopefully some other people agree with me. Validation is nice sometimes. And yeah, check out the rest of the divisions coming up this week. East tomorrow, South on Wednesday, the West on Thursday. And there'll be plenty of other stuff coming up on the channel. So if you could like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon and all that good stuff, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure as always, and go Bucks.